Hello there. Today I will be ranking all of our players from who I think is most likely to win, to least likely, in a tier list. This will be based on how their game is looking going into next week, their potential long-term prospects, and how I think the edit is factoring into their chances to win or go far. This ranking is my own personal opinion, and will probably change massively from week to week, but these are my thoughts after episode 7. I also want to point out that tiers are not ordered in any particular way. The person who left this week was Chanelle. Overall, I thought Chanelle was a decent player with a solid read on how the game was going. Unfortunately for her, she could never get back on her feet game-wise after the tribal council where Jenny left the game. The Vati tribe was willing to throw her under the bus at the merge, so she never really had a chance unless she made some solid alliances, which she seems to have been unable to do. D tier this week is for players who I see have very little chance of winning, and will likely leave the very game soon. First in the D tier this week is Tori, who remains in the D tier from last week. Tori once again remains a chaotic presence this season, where we saw her once again win immunity, foiling the majority alliance for a second week in a row. We also saw her cause more general chaos in the game by telling Romeo that he was a target, which caused a pre-tribal scramble. Tori also saw that Drea was acting suspiciously after the red hand advantage, which I could see impacting the game in the future, as we already saw Tori telling Marianne about it. If Tori can cause enough discourse around camp, I could see her staying more tribals as more targets emerge, but until that happens, I think she is most likely to go next unless she wins immunity. Next in the D tier this week is Romeo, who falls from the B tier from last week. This was a rough week for Romeo, as I previously thought he had solid connections in the merge tribe, but we saw that is not that case. Romeo was targeted for being paranoid about the vote, which to his credit he was right to be paranoid about. Unfortunately for him, he now has an uphill battle to gain back favor in the tribe, as his allies like Drea and Roxroy no longer trust him and want him gone. Romeo could easily be next out of the game, and it is hard to see him winning from this point, but time will tell how he ends up faring. C tier this week is for players who I either see little chance of winning the game, or could leave soon. First in the C tier this week is Roxroy, who remains in the C tier from last week. This was a quiet episode from Roxroy, so it is hard to know how his game developed this episode, but it does seem like he has found a decent spot in the game currently. He does not seem like an immediate target in coming tribal councils, but I do worry for him long term. It seems to me that Roxroy won't be respected at the end, so I can't see him being higher on the tier list, but we will see if he can emerge as a true player. B tier this week is for players who I think have a good chance to win, but have some flaws in their game that are holding them back, or are just overall middling. First in the B tier this week is Lindsay, who remains in the B tier from last week. The Queen of B tier keeps her spot as someone who is middling in every aspect of the game this season. This was a quiet episode for Lindsay, but she seems to be solid with the merge tribe, and also has all of her remaining Taku members still intact, which does bode well for her game, as it gives her more options to work with. We will see if Lindsay can emerge in the future, but for now she is just a middling player in the game. Next in the B tier this week is Hai, who remains in the B tier from last week. Hai is in a decent spot in the game, having connections throughout the merge tribe, but I am worried for him moving forward. His ally Lydia left the game, followed by Chanelle, which means there is only Mike from the original Vati tribe still in the game, giving him less options moving forward. We will see if Hai can grab power in the game, or if he is taken out by someone else before that happens, but only time will tell, which is why I have Hai in the B tier. Next in the B tier is Marianne, who rises from the B tier from last week. Marianne is still not in a great spot in the game after this week, but she has shown that she is a better player than I previously had thought. Marianne is obviously someone who wears her emotions on her sleeve, so I love to see her use that to her advantage. She was able to convince Omar to sit out of the immunity challenge, while numerous other players also commended her for her emotions. This leads me to believe that she can pull off great moves in the future, which I think gives her an overall solid chance to win at this point. A tier this week is for players who aren't looking like they will go home soon, and have solid chances to win the game. First in the A tier this week is Jonathan, who remains in the A tier from last week. Jonathan is a player who I was worried about coming into the merge, but he has again shown that he doesn't seem to be an immediate target in coming tribals. Jonathan is an obvious physical threat, and while he hasn't won an immunity necklace yet, he did come in second behind Tori, showing he is no slouch either. If Jonathan's connections turn on him, he could easily be gone, but currently he seems to have a solid shot of winning if things can stay the same. Next in the A tier this week is Drea, who remains in the A tier from last week. Advantage Queen Drea has found yet another advantage, this time gaining the extremely powerful knowledge is power advantage. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she currently holds the most advantages of any player in Survivor history. The big question for Drea, however, is if she can use those powers well, or she will fumble them and go home. I am slightly worried for Drea, as Tori seems to be onto her new advantage, but if Tori ends up leaving soon, it might be of no consequence to her game. Ultimately, Drea is in a solid spot on her tribe with many advantages, so I think she has a great chance to win. S tier this week is for players who are in great positions, aren't likely to leave anytime soon, and also have a great chance to win in my opinion. First in the S tier this week is Mike, who remains in the S tier from last week. Once again we see that Mike is in one of, if not the best positions in the whole merge tribe. Mike got his way with Chanelle going home this week, as he was able to use his connections with those such as Omar, Hi and Jonathan to make sure his target went home. These numerous connections lead me to believe that he will be safe for quite some time in the game, and if things were to go wrong for him he still has an immunity idol to protect himself. I see Mike as a frontrunner to win the game at this point, but you never know in Survivor. Next in the S tier this week is Omar, who remains in the S tier from last week. Omar, like Mike, is a player who has many connections with other players in the merge tribe. While he is close to Mike and all of the Taku tribe, he also has connections with players on the outs such as Tori and Romeo. These connections allowed him to know that Romeo knew he was a target, showing that he has the trust of almost everyone in the game. If Omar can maintain his great position with his great connections, I think he has a great chance to win the game. There is my current tier list of who I think is most likely to win and make it far. Keep in mind that these are just my opinions, and I am unspoiled this season, and this is very subject to change. We will see if anyone else will be able to rise to the S tier, and I am interested to see how the rest of the season will shake out. Thanks for watching.